Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different.
Little change of pace.
Exactly. Usually we're looking forward, tech, trends, where the world's going.
Right.
But today, we're looking backward.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to realize that our rear view mirror is completely cracked.
That's a good way to put it. We could call it historical amnesia.
It's the perfect term. I was reading through this stack of sources you sent, and I had this sinking feeling.
Oh, yeah.
My entire mental image of European history is basically a collage of, three things.
Let me guess. Hollywood movies.
Yes. And old propaganda
Oh.
and cartoons I watched when I was 8.
You're not alone. We think of history as this set of hard facts, rocks in a jar.
Right.
But it's really more like a game of telephone that's been going on for 2,000 years. Every generation just tweaks the story a bit.
To fit their own narrative. So the mission today is to take 15 distinct facts that most of us believe, things that would win you a point at a pub quiz, and just, prove that they're totally false.
And hopefully replace them with something more interesting. The truth is usually weirder than the myth.
I love that. Okay, let's start with the visuals. The costume department of history. I want to talk about Vikings.
Of course.
Because when I close my eyes and picture a Viking, I see a very specific silhouette. Big guy, beard, axe, and a helmet with 2 giant horns sticking out of it.
Like the logo for the Minnesota Vikings.
Exactly. Or Elmer Fudd in What's Opera, Doc?
Right. Well, I hate to ruin the logo for you, but that helmet is pure fiction.
What? Completely.
100%. If you went back to the 9th century, you would never see a Viking wearing horns.
Never.
Never. I mean, just think about it from a combat perspective.
Okay.
You're in a shield wall, shoulder to shoulder. People are swinging swords and axes at your head. Do you really want 2 convenient handles sticking out of your helmet for an enemy to grab?
Or for a sword to catch on, it would snap your neck.
Exactly. It's a liability. Plus, trying to run through a dense Scandinavian forest.
You'd be getting snagged on every single branch.
It makes zero practical sense.
So if they didn't wear them, why do we think they did? Where does that come from?
It's actually the fault of costume designers from the 1800s.
I'm kidding.
No, specifically for Wagner's operas. The costume designer for the Ring Cycle, a guy named Karl Emil Dupler, he wanted the Vikings to look, barbaric and pagan.
So he just slapped some horns on them.
He did. It was the heavy metal aesthetic of the 19th century. It looked cool on stage, and it just stuck.
Wow. So archaeologists have never found one.
Well, they've only found 2 intact helmets from the Viking Age, and both of them.
Let me guess. Smooth.
Completely smooth.
That is disappointing, but it makes so much sense. It's funny how we do that, project our own drama onto the past. Which brings us to Rome.
The toga.
Ah, yes. The bedsheet look.
Animal house, toga parties. You just assume that if you walk down a street in ancient Rome, everyone's just draped in white sheets.
This is one of my favorites because it's really a misunderstanding of social class.
How so?
The toga wasn't like a t-shirt and jeans. It was a tuxedo. A tuxedo.
Really? Strictly formal wear.
Yeah.
And strictly for citizens. If you were a foreigner, a slave, in exile, you weren't even allowed to wear one.
So it's a status symbol.
A huge one. And honestly, most citizens hated wearing it.
Why? It looks kind of regal.
Have you ever tried to keep 6 yards of heavy white wool wrapped around your body without it falling off while walking around in the Mediterranean heat?
I can't say that I have, no.
It's miserable. You can't really use your left arm because it's busy holding the fabric up. It's hot. It gets dirty instantly.
So what did they wear every day?
Tunics. Simple knee-length tunics. Sandals. Much more practical. If you saw a guy in a toga walking down a back alley, you'd think, why is that guy wearing a tux to go get groceries?
Okay, one more visual myth.
Yeah.
The statues. This one actually blew my mind. We revere Greek and Roman statues for their purity, right? That clean white marble.
It's the definition of classy to us.
It is.
But that's our modern taste, not their ancient taste. We see white marble. The Romans saw canvas.
A canvas for what?
For paint. Those statues were originally painted. And I don't mean like subtle highlights. I mean bright, garish primary colors.
Like a carnival float.
Closer to a comic book or an action figure. They painted the skin, the eyes, the lips, the clothes. There's a famous statue, the Augustus of Prima Porta. When scientists reconstructed the original colors, it looks tacky to us.
Really?
Oh, yeah. The armor is bright blue and red. The toga is crimson. It's a lot.
So we've literally whitewashed history just by letting the paint fade.
In a way, yes. And then art historians in the Renaissance fell in love with the plain white stone and decided that was the ideal of beauty. But the ancients loved color. They wanted these things to look alive.
That really changes the vibe of walking through a museum. You're just in a graveyard of faded paint.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move from what they wore to what they thought. I feel like we have this stupid ancestor complex. Like, we assume anyone born before, say, 1900 was just kind of an idiot.
It's a very common bias. We confuse technology with intelligence.
And the biggest example that has to be the flat Earth. The story we all learn is everyone in 1492 thought the world was flat, and Columbus was this brave genius who's going to prove it was round.
That narrative is almost 100% manufactured.
So they knew it was round.
Any educated person in Europe knew the Earth was round since the 3rd century BC. That early? Oh, yeah. Pythagoras proposed it. Aristotle proved it. By the Middle Ages, kings held globes as symbols of their power. It was common knowledge among the elite.
And even sailors would have known, right? You watch a ship sail away, the hull disappears before the mast, you can see the curve.
Exactly. The debate with Columbus wasn't about the shape of the Earth. It was about its size.
Right.
Columbus thought the Earth was much, much smaller than it actually is. He thought he could sail to Asia in a few weeks. The experts told him, no, the Earth is huge. You'll run out of food and die before you get there.
So the experts were actually right. Columbus was the one who was wrong.
He was just incredibly lucky he bumped into the Americas, or he would have starved.
So where does this myth even come from?
You can think Washington Irving, the guy who wrote The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
The author.
Yep. He wrote a biography of Columbus in 1828. And he wanted to create this American hero archetype, the lone genius fighting superstitious old Europe. So he just invented the flat Earth opposition to make Columbus look smarter.
That's incredible. It's just storytelling, which I guess connects to the other big branding issue, the Dark Ages.
Oh, historians hate that term.
It sounds so gloomy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like the power went out in Rome and everyone just sat in the mud for 500 years.
That's the popular image. But again, it's just branding. The term was coined by Petrarch, a Renaissance poet who was obsessed with ancient Rome. He just thought anything that wasn't Roman was, garbage.
But actual stuff happened, right? It wasn't just dark.
Huge stuff happened. This was a time of massive agricultural innovation, the heavy plow, new crop rotations. It saw the birth of the university system, the foundation of modern states like France and England.
That's just in Europe.
Exactly. If you zoom out just a tiny bit, you have the Islamic Golden Age happening. While London was a bit muddy, Baghdad was performing eye surgery and translating Aristotle.
Hardly dark for humanity as a whole.
Not at all. I do love the names of the Frankish kings from that era, though.
Oh, they're the best. Louis the Do-Nothing.
Charles the Simple.
Tepin the Short. They were so brutally honest. We need to bring that back. I'd respect a politician more if they went by Gary the Mildly Confident.
It would certainly lower expectations.
Okay, let's jump to pop culture. This is the stuff that's really ingrained in us. Let's start with pirates.
Okay.
If I do a pirate impression, I'm going to squint one eye and say, "Arr, matey," in a weird growly accent.
The West Country accent, yes.
Is that real? Did Blackbeard talk like that?
Almost certainly not. That entire accent, that entire persona is the invention of one man, Robert Newton.
Who's that?
He was the actor who played Long John Silver in the 1950 Disney movie of Treasure Island.
You're telling me it's just one actor's choice? From one movie?
He was from the West Country in England, and he just cranked his natural accent up to 11 for the role. It became iconic. Before 1950, pirates in movies just spoke standard English. But Newton was so memorable that he literally defined the voice of piracy forever.
That's the ultimate example of life imitating art. What about walking the plank?
Also fiction. Mostly from Peter Pan and Treasure Island, real pirates were practical. If they wanted to kill you, they'd just stab you and throw you overboard.
Too much setup.
Way too much admin.
Speaking of theatrical, Rasputin, the Mad Monk.
The lover of the Russian queen.
That Boney M song is great, by the way. But the myth is that he was this supernatural figure, right? Slept with the Tsarina, ran the government, and he was unkillable. They poisoned him, shot him, drowned him.
It's a fantastic horror story. But the reality is much more mundane. First, there's zero evidence of an affair with the Tsarina. She was a desperate mother.
Her son had hemophilia.
Right. And for whatever reason, Rasputin seemed to be the only person who could calm the boy down and stop the bleeding. It was a weird, mystical dependency, not a romance.
And the death.
Yeah.
The unkillable part.
The autopsy reports are pretty clear. He was shot in the head at close range. He died from a bullet.
So he didn't drink cyanide and laugh it off.
His assassins, Prince Yusupov and his friends, they claim that later. But historians think they just made it all up.
Why?
Because the assassination was actually a botched, messy, incompetent job. By claiming Rasputin was some kind of demon who refused to die, they made themselves look like heroes fighting a monster, not a bunch of fumbling aristocrats who struggled to kill one unarmed man.
It changes the genre from clumsy political hit to supernatural thriller.
Which is much better for your reputation.
All right, I want to slow down a bit here because we're moving into the part of the outline that deals with war. And this is where the myths stop being just funny and start being, well, consequential.
Right. This is where history is written by the winners really comes into play.
Let's start with the French army. There's this pervasive joke, especially in the US and the UK, that the French are cowards. The whole cheese-eating surrender monkeys line from The Simpsons.
It's a very successful meme, but it's historically illiterate. That reputation is based almost entirely on 6 weeks in 1940.
When France fell to the Nazis.
Exactly. Which was a total disaster, no question. But if you zoom out and look at the actual data, and historians have done this, France is the most successful military power in European history.
By numbers.
By the numbers. Out of 168 major recorded wars since 397 BC, France has won 109 of them. That's about a 65% win rate. It's better than Britain's, better than America's.
Wow.
Even the English victories we always talk about, like Agincourt. France won that war, the 100 Years' War. And Napoleon is arguably one of the greatest military strategists ever. So judging France on 1940 is like judging an all-time great quarterback on one bad game.
It's pure recency bias. Okay, sticking with that theme, Mussolini.
Ah, the trains.
Say what you want about fascism, but at least he made the trains run on time. I still hear people say this. It's the ultimate efficiency argument for dictators.
And it is completely false. And this one really matters because it's used to justify authoritarianism.
So the trains weren't on time.
No. The Italian railway system was in shambles during Mussolini's rule. The few improvements that did happen were started years before he took power by the previous democratic government. He just showed up, cut the ribbon, and took the credit.
So the trade-off, I'll give up my freedom for efficiency, is a scam.
It's a total scam. You give up your freedom and the train is still late.
That is sobering. All right, let's talk about the Spanish flu. I think most people, myself included, just assume it started in Spain. It's in the name.
This is a classic case of what I call the honesty tax.
The honesty tax.
The pandemic hit in 1918, right in the middle of World War I. The U.S., Britain, France, Germany, they were all at war. They had strict censorship. They weren't going to report on a deadly plague spreading through their trenches because it would destroy morale.
So they just suppressed the news.
Exactly. But Spain was neutral in the war. They had a free press. So when people started getting sick and dying in Madrid, the Spanish newspapers wrote about it.
So because they were the only ones talking about it.
So the rest of the world pointed and said, look, it must be the Spanish flu. Spain got the blame simply because they were the only ones telling the truth.
That is so unfair. But it shows how censorship literally shapes our memory of events.
It really does.
Okay, this brings us to probably the biggest myth of the 20th century, World War II. If you watch Saving Private Ryan or Band of Brothers or Dunkirk, the narrative is clear. America and Britain liberated Europe and defeated the Nazis.
This is maybe the most sensitive one, but we have to look at the numbers. Because the numbers tell a story that Hollywood generally ignores.
Wait, what's that story?
That the real star of the European theater, if we're talking about who actually broke the back of the Wehrmacht, was the Soviet Union.
The sheer scale of the Eastern Front is something I don't think we really comprehend in the West.
It's hard to wrap your head around. For most of the war, something like 4 out of every 5 German soldiers who died in combat were killed by the Soviet army.
Wait, say that again? 80%.
80% of German combat deaths were on the Eastern Front. We focus on D-Day, and rightly so. It was a vital second front. But by the time D-Day happened in June 1944, the German army had already been absolutely gutted at Stalingrad and Kursk.
And the cost. The human cost of the Soviets.
It's staggering. The Soviet Union lost approximately 24 million people.
24 million.
That's nearly 15% of their entire population. To put that in perspective, the U.S. lost about 400,000. The U.K. lost about 450,000. The Soviet sacrifice is on a completely different planet.
So why don't we tell that story? Why isn't Stalingrad the movie every kid has to watch?
The Cold War. Immediately after World War II ended, the Soviets became the enemy. It wasn't politically convenient to teach American or British schoolchildren that the communists basically saved the world from Hitler.
So we just wrote them out of the script.
We emphasized D-Day and the Battle of Britain, and we downplayed the Eastern Front. It really makes you realize that history isn't just what happened, it's what we choose to remember.
Precisely.
Let's finish up with one last section. Let's call it religious amnesia. The idea that medieval Europe was this monolithic Christian fortress.
Right. We picture knights, monks, and cathedrals. A purely Christendom continent.
But we're leaving huge parts of the story out.
Like who?
Well, the Ottoman Empire, for one. We tend to see them as outsiders banging on the gates of Vienna. But for 500 years, they controlled huge chunks of Southeast Europe. Greece, the Balkans, Hungary. They were a European power, deeply involved in European politics.
The King of France even had an alliance with them at one point, didn't he?
It did, against the Habsburgs. It was all just geopolitics. And then you have Spain and Portugal. For 700 years, Al-Andalus was a Muslim kingdom. It was the most advanced, literate, and scientific society in Europe at the time.
Cordoba had streetlights when London was a mud pit.
Exactly. So this idea of a pure, white Christian Europe fighting off the other is a total fantasy. Europe has always been a messy blend of cultures and religions.
So when we look back at all of this, I mean, horned helmets that didn't exist, a flat earth that nobody believed in, pirates with fake accents, a war narrative that ignores the biggest contributor. What's the takeaway?
I think the takeaway is that we crave simplicity. We want history to be a movie. We want clear heroes, clear villains, cool costumes, and simple lessons.
But the reality is always messier.
Always.
But don't you think the reality is actually better? I mean, realizing that our ancestors weren't idiots who thought the world was flat, that makes me feel better about being human. Realizing that the Romans loved color makes them feel more alive.
I agree completely. When you strip away the myths, you stop treating these people like characters in a fantasy novel. You start seeing them as humans, flawed, smart, complicated humans. And to me, that's much more respectful to their memory than the Hollywood version.
It definitely is. And it leaves me with one final, slightly paranoid thought. If we got this much wrong about togas and the Spanish flu and World War II, what are we doing today that historians in 100 years will look back on and just laugh at?
Oh, I have a long list.
Maybe they'll think we all worshipped cats because of all the internet videos.
Or they'll wonder why we voluntarily carried tracking devices, our phones, everywhere we went, and called it freedom.
Oof. Okay, let's not go down that rabbit hole today. We'll save that for a future deep dive. Thank you for guiding us through the fog of history.
My pleasure.
And thank you to everyone listening. Next time you see a Viking helmet with horns, you have my permission to be that guy and correct everyone in the room. We'll see you on the next deep dive.